Hi besties! So today is a super exciting video because I basically just get to yap about my favorite books of 2024, which may not sound exciting, but I swear I am so excited. Can we please talk about my shirt? And I know you can't see the full thing. I'm gonna insert a picture here, but my brother got this shirt for me for Christmas and he found it at the thrift store of all places, and I'm obsessed with it. And I feel like it speaks very accurately to my personality and who I am, since right now it's just books. Let's get into it because I actually do have quite a bit to yap about, and I'm pretty sure there are 10 books on this list, so we have no time to waste today. Starting off with my top book of the year, which is like a god tier book. It's a 6 out of 5. Like, I was not expecting to love this as much as I do, and I've yapped about it so many times before. So I'm gonna try and like keep the ones I've yapped about to a minimum, but that might be hard for me. But of course it's Fourth Wing, because the nostalgia of it, of the different stories, in my opinion, that kind of like mix in together from stories that I've read when I was younger. So like Divergent, I think that was a big one because I loved Divergent when I was younger, like The Hunger Games and How to Train Your Dragon, like all in one. I'm absolutely obsessed with this world, and funny enough, I just started Iron Flame a couple days ago, like on Christmas, so maybe 3 days ago, and literally just reading about the characters and coming back to this world felt like coming home, and I don't know how else to describe that other than it was like the most warm, comforting feeling, even though this is not a warm and fuzzy book whatsoever. I got the 5-star feeling in this less than 5 chapters in. I would say chapter 3, because I'm pretty sure when I got the 5-star feeling, I texted my boyfriend and I was like, I think this is gonna be a 5-star, and he's like, you just started, and I was like, I know, that's how crazy that is. It literally, it made me laugh, it made me kick my feet and giggle, made me giddy, it made me cry, tears of sadness. My heart like dropped into my stomach multiple times. The twists at the end, I think there were at least 3 like plot twists that I just wasn't ready for. Also, Rebecca's writing in some of these scenes are like insane. I most recently remember in Iron Flame, but even here, like I was going through some of the tabs and like reading through, and I was like, this imagery is like insane. Like I cannot like imagine this so clearly in my head, and like this would be an insane movie scene. This is like my Roman Empire. The books that you think about after reading them, and you think about them multiple times after you're done reading them, that literally did something. I tried not to yap about it for too long, but that didn't succeed. Unfortunately, I don't have a physical copy of this book because it is not out to the general public yet, but it is Mercy of the Dawn. This was my very first ARC book, and of course it's gonna hold some sort of importance because it is my first ARC book like ever. I was a little scared going into it at first because all of the trigger warnings I read, I was like, ooh, some of these could hit like very close to home, and they did. But Ashley just wrote about it in such like a mature way, and she encapsulated a lot of like emotion very accurately, and I just, oh my god, it was just amazing. I had such a strong emotional reaction to a lot of the things that happened in the book. Like there's no way that it's not up there. You guys know how I feel about like non-physical books and ebooks that I have to read on my phone. Like they usually don't rank as high, but this was actually insane. Like I couldn't stop, I couldn't put my phone down. The pacing of the story was incredible. Like there was never a dull moment or a moment where I'm like, I'm bored, I'm gonna go do something else. Like I didn't have any of those moments whatsoever. And all I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but all I'm gonna say is that if he wanted to, he would, and he did. So it's just, all of my romantasy girlies, you're gonna love it. Take my word, you're gonna love it. But this is basically about Cyril, and this whole book is like a fae world, and she is raised by her uncle, and actually multiple, she has like 3 uncles, so she's raised by them, and they're part of a group called the Guild. And basically in this story, they are hired by an old friend of her uncle and her deceased parents, so a family friend, I guess, to help investigate mysterious murders that have been happening in the neighboring kingdom of Riker. I think that's how I've been saying it, but I could be wrong. So there she meets the prince, and he is also the commander of their army, and he trains all of like the new recruits and stuff. His name is Michael, but I think his nickname was Micah because I've just been calling him Micah the whole time. And Micah ends up despising Cyril, and she ends up despising him because he despises her, and things kind of just start going very wrong for Cyril and her family when she is there, like her uncles and herself when she is in Riker. Micah is basically the only one who ends up standing by her side through like all of the turmoil that is going on. This guy made me scream and cry and throw up all in one, because my body actually had a physical reaction to the ending of this book, and that has literally never happened since Divergent. And I read Divergent, or well, Allegiant, which is the last book in that series. I read that in grade 7, and I am now 2 years out of university, and I don't think anything will beat the reaction of breaking down over a fictional character. And that feeling only readers will understand, because like there's a TikTok that's going around that's making me laugh on BookTok, and it's like me like yelling at paper, but then I have to remind myself that it's just a book and nothing's real, because like, yes. I love Stephanie Garber's writing so much. The descriptive writing that she uses, and like the way I can just clearly imagine these scenes and these settings, I love it so much. All of her stories are, I would say, in my opinion, very YA, but there's something about that that I don't mind, because like it feels very YA, but it also doesn't. But like some of the things that she writes about, I would cringe about in other books, but I don't care. Like it doesn't matter in her books, because I just love them so much. I've been with these characters for quite a bit, like probably at least 2 years, which is very special to me because I started reading Caraval right after I graduated from university. So it's just, they're all just very special, and they hold a very dear place in my heart. But even though this book emotionally broke me, it was still one of my favorite books of the year. Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. You guys have heard me yap about this so much, so I'm gonna try and keep it to a minimum. But she never failed. I will literally recommend Elsie Silver to anyone. She has easily become one of my new favorite authors of 2024. I think she just knows how to write a fantastic small town romance in the mountains, which I have recently discovered. That is my crack. Those stories, small town romances, give them to me. I'm gonna love them. Alongside like small beach town romances, which goes to Miss Emily Henry, because like we'll talk about her in a little bit. It just adds to my love of Alberta as well, because both of the stories I've read have taken place in Alberta, and I think the Chestnut Spring series also does. Don't quote me on that though, because I haven't started them. I also do need I need to start that series in the new year. But that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna try and keep it to a minimum. Next up, we have Dragonfruit by Micaiah Lussier, and surprisingly enough, I don't think I've talked about this book a lot on this channel. I've definitely mentioned it, but I haven't talked about it as much as I feel like I should, because this was the catalyst of what got me back into reading, like hardcore reading every day. I literally had no expectations going into reading this book, and I think that's why I loved it so much, because it just literally blew everything out of the water. It was such a unique plot and story, and I'll probably say this again when I talk about Isle of Blood and Stone, but everything I've read by Micaiah Lussier so far, her plots are just so unique, and I haven't read anything like them ever since. She's just so creative, and I think a lot of that has to do with her basing her stories off of like, I haven't read a lot of pirate or like sea stories, but a lot of her stories so far have to do with like adventure at sea. This book specifically talks, or like is loosely based on Pacific Islander mythology, and that was like the draw that I had to buy in this book. This is about a girl named Hanalei, and she is basically on a mission to find dragon eggs, like hunt down dragon eggs, to basically restore honor to her family name. Even though she doesn't have to, she wants to. And these dragon eggs are going to basically save the mother of her best friend. And that's all I'm gonna say, because I really think you should go into it blind, because it's just so fun. This was, I think, my first 5-star book of the year. Another Micaiah Lussier book, which is Isle of Blood and Stone, and this is again another very original story. It's basically an adventure with a subplot of mystery. I honestly think this and Dragonfruit and the other book I've read by her are very underrated standalone fantasies. I think I checked this one, I also checked Dragonfruit, under 400 pages. If you're trying to get into fantasy, I feel like Micaiah Lussier is such a great start, because it's no commitment. It's nothing like an ACOTAR that's a series that's not done yet. I would think they're quite easy to understand, and the pacing's great, and there's nothing complicated about them to understand. I do indeed struggle to describe this book because there's just so much that goes on. So let's see if I can do this effectively this time. But this book is basically about a map maker and like a map artist, and it's about a map artist making school, and our main character Elias goes to that school. His father was a very famous map artist, but over a decade ago his father and the prince of the kingdom goes missing. Like, they were kidnapped and now believed to be dead because it's like a decade later. One day, Elias and his friends find a map signed by his father that was only created less than 2 years ago. So they're all like, wait, but he's dead. How is this possible? They basically follow the map and go on an adventure to see where the map will lead them and potentially solve like a decade-long mystery. That's all I'm gonna say. I feel like that was the best summary I could have given, which again, it sounds a little complicated, but it's so much fun. Funny Story by Emily Henry was a 5-star book, my first 5-star Emily Henry book, and it was the first like rom-com-y / women's fiction book that made me feel very deep emotions. I loved Miles and Daphne so much. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started, because like the overall atmosphere of their town was the perfect like small town romance beachy vibe. This book I can genuinely see myself rereading. Like, when I was going through a rough time earlier this year, I wanted to pick it up and read it again for comfort. I didn't have it because one of my best friends has it, but I know that it is definitely something I'm going to reread. I also think I loved it so much because I related a lot to like Daphne and her insecurities, but I just love seeing like her growth throughout the book, and at the end stand up for herself and like know her worth. It was just, you know, those feelings you get of like pride. I was like, I'm proud of you. I feel like I've said a lot about Funny Story, but those are like my main thoughts that kind of just encapsulate why I love it so much. Assassin's Blade made it on the list, which I didn't think I was gonna even start this series last year, but I'm so glad I did because oh my gosh, it is so worth the hype. This was the first book I read in the series, and I was so worried about the reading order, and I was like, should I read this first or should I read Throne of Glass first? I was so caught up on that I didn't start the series for like 2 months because I was trying to figure out what order to read them in. But why did I even stress about that when no one warned me about the emotional damage that comes with finishing this book? Why didn't anyone warn me? Even though it was a compilation of short stories, it felt like one big novel. And this may have ruined novellas for me because my expectations are just so high. When I read Spectacular, I was like, where's the rest of it? Why is it so short? But I'm pretty sure that's just what a novella is supposed to be. And the character development from Selena was just so fun to read, and like seeing the person who she was at the beginning of the book versus who she was at the end of the book was just, it was heartbreaking, but it was like a good heartbreaking. Daisy Jones and the Six. And can we all have a collective like cheer? There is a literary fiction book on my top books of the year, which is insane. This did take me a while to get into, but once I got into it, hooked. The ending of this book, I think when books have like a full circle moment, or like not necessarily a twist at the end, but something you didn't see coming that isn't like mind-blowing, but it's like, wow, she really thought about how to end off this book. Like, the ending made this a 5-star for me. One of my favorite characters of the year came out of this book, which is Camila, and I think I talked about her in my end of year book tag, so go watch that if you want to hear more about her. The writing in here is insane, especially because it is a transcript. Like, it's written in the form of an interview. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my favorite authors in general. Not a new favorite author because I have read her books before, but like, I just have nothing bad to say about her. You can tell she really thinks about the stories and the plot and how everything's gonna wrap up because she just does it so amazingly well. And I'm so excited about her new book coming out this year actually, about NASA and like space. And again, something I would probably never pick up a book about, but because she's writing that story, I'm indeed gonna read it. I can't believe I'm finally holding this in my hand, but the last book is The Games That Gods Play by Abigail Owens, and oh my god, I got a physical copy for myself because I just loved it so much. Like, this is insane. Like, okay, don't come at me. You all know me and my pretty books, but like, oh my gosh, I loved it so much. And again, like, this is like Fourth Wing, where it's like a mix of nostalgic books, because it gave me big like Percy Jackson Hunger Games vibes, and I ate that up. For it being an audiobook and me rating it 5 stars, like, that's basically unheard of. It really pulled through in like the plot, and there's just never a dull moment, and oh my god, like it is one of the many great romantasy books this year. Come to realize as well that romantasy is probably like my favorite genre, but like romantasy plus action, and I don't know if that's a thing, but like can I make it a thing? Because, or is that just romantasy in itself? I don't know. This edition is like stunning. I need to rearrange my bookshelf again because like I have too many. I can't wait for the rest of the series. I'm so impatient because like the ending of this, I was not expecting it. I didn't even know it was a series until the ending of this book. Like Greek gods, adventure, action, romantasy. So thank you guys so much for spending a little bit of time with me today, because honestly this was so much fun to me, like wrapping up all these books and like literally just being able to like yap about my favorite books of the year. So if you take anything away from this, please like maybe just at least one of these. Like they're all just such a great representation of like my reading tastes and what I love, which is really funny because oh my gosh, funny story is here too. Imagine like 2 extra books on top, okay? But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in next week's video. That is all for now. 2024 favorite books wrapped.